Hello, crafty friends. It's Diane, the Creative Inkster. I am back again. Wanted to wish you a wonderful day or evening, wherever it is you are. Right now, it's 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, and I'm in Guelph, Ontario, Canada. So sorry, I'm just showing you my hands. There really is a person attached to all of this. And I want to show you one of my very favorite projects that I do a lot for a lot of reasons. And this is the garden walk paper, which many of the patterns are very floral and such. This one with the poinsettias, though, is a little more Christmassy. And so I thought it was perfect for this. You do need just over one, like you need a full one, and then you need another piece of 6 by 6. If you went from a 12 by 12 and you just took your 6 by 12 half sheet, you'd be able to do this too. And then I've got an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock. If you're in the UK or using the other size cardstock, then you'll be able to make this as well. I'm thinking though that it's 8.25 wide. If so, then only make your strip along here 1/4 inch for the flap to close it. I'm going to give you measurements of using a 1/2 inch strip, but I think this is totally doable and you don't have to get into a 12 by 12 sheet. So this is called the 2468 box. And hi, Vicki. And it is one that I first learned from Rhonda Wade in the US. And I'm sure it may have been her design, it may have been somebody else's, but I'm sure lots of people have done it as well. It's super simple, super easy to do. So let's get started. This is my lunch break from the day job, and I'm really happy to be working from home today because then I can jump over here and jump on and do this presentation. So here's my 8.5 by 11. I'm going to cut it down to 10.5 long. So I'm going to cut a 1/2 inch off the top. And if your cardstock is not 8.5 wide, then you just want to adjust a little bit. So I have 8.5 by 10.5, and you may have 8.25 by 10.5. The length isn't that important, but you'll see as you do the scoring that we need to make some adjustments. Okay, we're going to put the cardstock aside and we're going to do some scoring on it in a little bit. In the meantime, we're going to grab our pattern paper, and I specifically chose ones that are not obvious directionals. That's usually the way I go because you never know how it's going to land when you cut the piece up, and you don't have to worry about making sure that it's facing upright, or your birds are flying upside down, or your flowers are growing from the sky, whatever. So we need 4 strips that are 1 3/4 inches by 5 3/4. So because I'm working from a 6 inch, I'm going to cut it off at 5 3/4. That's a little bit of scrap or something to go on a card. I'm going to turn it this way because I want to get as 3 1 3/4 inch strips out of there. So I don't want to do the math. I'm just going to cut them. So it's 5 3/4 this way. So I've got that length all good to go. I'm going to cut it across at 1 3/4. Then I'm going to cut another one at 1 3/4. And a third at 1 3/4. These are the panels for your box. I should show you the box. And then this scrap piece, put that aside to put on the inside of a card or on an envelope to use it up. So there are 3 of them. And the 4th one, once again, I'm going to do 1 3/4 inches. I'm going to cut that piece first. So I have the largest scrap leftover piece, and then I'm going to cut it at 5 3/4. And I have the least amount of waste, I find, when I do it that way. All right, so I now have 4 pieces that are 1 3/4 by 5 3/4. We'll set those aside for decorating. And then we're also going to cut 1 or 2. I'm going to do 2 because I can. I'm going to turn this a long ways, and I'm going to cut it at 1 3/4. So I have it 6 inches across, and I'm going to cut at 1 3/4, and I'm going to cut it at 1 3/4 for 2 more pieces. So line this up. There's the first 1 3/4 and the second. The second's not so important because it's going to go on the bottom of the box, But if you want to decorate the bottom of the box, then that's a way to do it. 2 1 3/4 inch square pieces. Okie dokie. Then I've got this really nice leftover piece that's 4 1/4 square. So we're not going to waste that. That's going to go on a card. Rightio. I got a little bit of punching to do, and then we'll get into our scoring. So what I decided was I'll use the 1 3/4 inch circle punch. You could use a die. So I'm going to punch one of those for the greeting. And then on the red, out of the red, or Poppy Parade, the color actually is, I'm going to punch out one from the 2 inch circle punch. And they're just going to layer together. So whatever shapes you have handy, whether they're punches or dies, it's just to make your greeting. So here is what the 2 4 6 8 box looks like. And it opens at the top like this. And I've sealed the bottom, although you could redesign it and instead have a fully folding in bottom, and then you can fold it flat to store it. So that's another possibility, but I am going to glue the end shut. And there's those long pieces that we cut of the pattern paper. And then I cut one for the top, 1 3/4 square, and one for the bottom on the one we're going to do today. And then I have a little greeting to go on here. So it's pretty straightforward. Hoping I'm not going to get lost. So I've got my little template out here to help me along. I'm going to grab my Simply Scored. This is a tool that I love, and I hope we keep it in the line for a very long time because I certainly plan on using it. It's very, very handy for me. Alrighty, so we are going to grab that piece of Poppy Parade or whatever cardstock you chose that I cut to 8 1/2 by 10 1/2 with the 8 1/2 inch side across. We're going to score it at, you guessed it, 2, 4, 6, and 8 inches, hence the name of the box. That gives me a 1/2 inch strip along here. If your cardstock's only to 8 1/4, then you're just going to have a thinner edge, and that's okay. It will still seal just fine. All right, so with it like that, I'm then going to do the bottom scoring piece. So with that thin strip at my right, I'm turning it to the right 90 degrees, and I'm going to score it at 2 inches. And that, my dear friends, is not all the scoring. Oh yeah, right, I have to do it at 2 inches. And I also need to do it at 2 inches. Sorry, I've written the measurement down incorrectly. 2 inches and 8 inches. There we go. Oh, and also at 10, right? 2, 8, and 10, because I need a little flap at the top. 2, 8, and 10. There we go. All right, I'm going to go through those measurements one more time. So with it at 8 1/2 cross, I scored at 2, 4, 6, and 8. With the thin strip to my right, I turn it left by 90 degrees. I scored at 2 inches, 8 inches, and 10 inches. All righty. Now we're ready to do some cutting and mitering and that kind of thing. So down here, I should leave it like this. This is that thin strip. That's a 1/2 or 1/4 inch. I'm going to turn it to my left, and I'm going to cut this bottom rectangle out here. So time to grab your paper snips. Get the scoring tool out of the way. And actually, you know what I'm going to do? Yeah, I was going to fold them first, but I'm just going to cut it off here. I'm cutting this little rectangle out of the corner because as you fold the pieces around and you fold your bottoms up, you don't need this piece off here. Now we've got a large segment here and then 2 rectangles, actually a rectangle and a square. So we're going to cut these 2 ones off the side. These 2 right here. So you've got your long but skinny rectangle. We're leaving that intact. And then we're going to cut these guys off. It's a good thing I keep templates. They really help me. Now, it is recommended on this one that you miter the corners, so that thin tab is going to be where you put your adhesive that holds this box shut. So it's good to miter out the little corners. And there's no real measurement to that, just a little angled cut. And then over here, we're also going to take out this square here, this rectangle on the end, so the top one. So if you're looking at it with your thin piece in front of you, you've got a square, a rectangle, a square. We're going to cut this off, little piece on the end. I hope that my instructions are making sense. And then looking to the right, you've got another thin rectangle and a square. We're going to cut them both off. We're just making the flaps on the top. So you can cut right down that whole segment here. Okay, that's going. So I just folded it there so I can get in and trim that off with my paper snips. There we go. And then we have another square and a rectangle. We're taking this little rectangle off. You're probably thinking, well, how are we going to close this box? Well, we're getting there. I think I just do these up so quickly all the time that I'm actually following the instructions for a change. This is what our box is starting to look like. Now we're going to miter these edges ever so slightly. And that's here on the box. So we've created the flaps. And we want this little piece that's going to tuck in. We don't want to cut them too much, just enough so that when you fold them over and slide them in, they're not going to get caught on the way in. So we need to cut down here, the top two squares. We need to cut down a wee bit to the first score line. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. We've got a square. And we have this little rectangle. We're going to miter this little rectangle ever so slightly. And yeah, I try to get it straight, but not always successful. So that's the little wee bit that I cut off. Not much at all. All right. Starting to come together. Starting to look like a box. Now we have to cut the bottom up. So let's turn it around. So this is the bottom. These are the pieces that fold in and close up the bottom of your box. Now you could have left that 1/2-inch strip that we cut off from the very beginning and done a similar thing as I've done at the top in order to have a little tab to close the box that way. Certainly could have done that. All right, so I'm going to open it up. I'm going to lay it flat so you can get a visual on how this is supposed to look when you get to this point. These we've cut up because this is the bottom. This is the top of your box. All right, let's grab our bone folder and do some folding. So we'll start with the bottom 4, and we're just going to fold them all up. So I'm just going to, right-handed, so I'm just going to fold them all over onto the back. Get those nicely creased. There we go, our little flaps for the bottom. And then on the side opposite that little flap, we're going to fold over and back. Then we'll go to the next score line, we'll fold over and press on it, fold back. And then this one will fold forward, press on it. See how we're getting a box here? And then your tab, you're going to fold that in. And there we go. All right, so I'm going to just hold them up so you can get a visual again on this and what should be folding in and how it should look. So these are our, I have to move to bottom this way. These are our bottom pieces. There's our little tab that's going to close the box. There's our flaps for the front, and then that's the piece that goes over. All right, like that. So on this is the inside of your box. Everything is folding in towards the inside. on the back side or the outside of this little tab, we're going to put some tear and tape. Now I have used Stampin' Seal, that will work as well, but I've also used liquid glue and you have to hold it in place. So I find tear and tape or Stampin' Seal to be your best bet here. Press it down well, and then we're going to pull off the tape. But here's how we're going to get it to seal. You've got 1, 2, 3, the 4 2-inch rectangles. We're going to fold it in the middle, and it's going to marry up right there. And that's how it's going to seal. If you try to do this in your hands, it's never going to work. So fold this little flap in, fold this side over, and it will seal really nicely because they're all the same size. So let's take the tape off. And it's sticky. Fold it down the middle of these 4 long rectangle pieces and press firmly there. You can even use your bone folder. All right, starting to look tubular. All right, if we press it open, you'll see that at the top you have 2 pieces that will fold over and the one that'll go in. And at the bottom, you've got 4 flaps, which we'll just glue in like that. But before we get this thing into a 3D shape, let's put some of these paper pieces on. I almost always forget to do this, and then I'm wondering why I'm trying to add it to something that has air in the middle. So I know where the long ones are going. That's pretty easy. They're going on all 4 panels, and they're just a 1/4 inch smaller than the panels. For this, you can use any glue you have, except temporary. I suppose you want to use something that's pretty permanent. And I didn't worry too much that the pattern doesn't flow from rectangle shape to rectangle shape. Some people might worry about that and want to get these all lined up. Well, I don't worry too much about that. I'm just going to glue them down because it's so pretty. And it's going to be a 3D project. So now what would I put in this box? Well, I filled it with treats at Valentine's. I have filled it with Halloween treats because we love those. Flip this over, put the other pieces on. I have put hand soap. I have put hand cream. I have put those mini liqueur bottles that you can get at the liquor. Here it's the liquor control board or wherever you buy your fine spirits and wines. Socks. I've rolled up socks and put them in. So this is really a nice hostess gift box. Something to put under the tree that you've made yourself for people. When I did my children's Christmas stockings 2 years ago, I made them all 3D project boxes and put different things into them. So this is where I put their socks. So yeah, you can do a lot with this. So now on the bottom, I remember that my back of the box is where this is folding over. So this is the back section here where it's folding over from. So I kind of want my last bottom flap to fold down so that the open end is at the back. So to do that, this is the one that's going to fold in last. I'll put the left and right ones or right and left ones in first, then this one, and then that one. And then all my seams are at the back. So for the first one, I'm just going to push it in. It happens to be the right one. And add some glue to the left inside flap. Tuck it in. If you don't think you've touched it closely enough to each other, you can stick your bone folder in, or if your hand is super skinny, you can stick your hand in. And then this one comes forward. I like liquid glue for these projects because it has a really nice strong bond, but allows me some wiggle room for the goof ups and the lineups. There we go. This is the last one that's going to go towards the back of the box. Then once you get it on the table, you can stick your small hand if you can, or your bone folder in there and press that down. All right, so there's the box. We'll just close it up like that. And you may need to give it a little haircut. You might get to here and go, oh, this isn't closing really easily for me. So you might need to trim these ever so much, which I'm going to do. just a little wee haircut. Often it's when you've done your score lines and then you didn't cut exactly in the center of that score line. It's hard to see those. So sometimes you just need to cut a little wee bit off. And then when you fold the pieces over and give your box a little squeeze, you can sticking to my fingers because they've got glue on them. You can stick that in there. All right. So that's our box finished with the main components. Now we're going to add these. I think this is a nice touch, and I wish I had done it with that other sample one that I keep up on my shelf because I think it's super cute. Now, these would be great as favors at the Christmas table or Hanukkah, New Year's, whenever you're having your company and friends over for events. They're just cute. Instead of little place cards, if you're into that kind of thing, then you could put this at the table. You don't have to put them, you could put them this way. You don't have to stand them up. But if you're tight on space, it's kind of cute to have them standing up. Now, a little stamping, nothing too big. I'm going to use Warm Wishes, and that's from Very Cute, where I've used a lot of the polar bear. And I just want to show you that often inside my stamp cases, I've got pieces for cards that I made too many of, so leftovers. So this is an embossed piece of snowflakes and a little bear that I punched out for something from another project I did. So I keep them all in the stamp case. And that way when I am looking for an extra or I have something to use, when I open up, it's like a little surprise. So I'm going to use Warm Wishes from there with the coordinating Poppy Parade. There we go. I did find some of the paper in this package of Garden Walk, but not this particular paper. It was a closer match to Sweet Sorbet, but in this, beautiful with that poppy color. Now that this is all set, I'm going to glue it onto the circle. And I'm going to grab some garden green ribbon. I have the garden green and there's the ribbon. Yes, there's a garden green and real red in the annual catalog, and put that on here just to wrap it around. I've also done it where you wrap it from the bottom, put the bow on the top. In this case, I'm just going to wrap it around here. I'm going to put a nice bow on it for my peeps. And this ties beautifully. This really does. It's a nice satin type ribbon. And that way it's all in place. And if by chance you're trying to glue it down and you're finding it's not staying for you as you're trying to tie the bow, put a little glue dot behind where the knot part is, and that will help hold it in place while you do the next bit with the bow. Just trimming this off. These are not my ribbon scissors, so they're usually using paper. And then the Warm Wishes. Actually, I'm going to tuck this down a little bit. Pull this down just a wee bit. Almost just below center. I'll put my Warm Wishes here. And I don't have the dimensionals right handy, but that's okay. We'll just glue it down. So it's a 2-inch circle, so it's just at the edges. But use what you have. It doesn't have to be a circle shape. And then you can add some embellishments or whatever you like to dress it up further. All right. Well, thanks for hanging in there with me. Hi, Joy. Thanks for popping in. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you'll make one. Leave me a note in the comments. Let me know. I will be back live at 6 o'clock Eastern Time. So that is in 4.5 hours, right? 4.5 hours, 4 hours, 35 minutes thereabouts. But this afternoon, every hour, I've got some more pre-recorded content from my YouTube channel to keep you going and crafting. So I hope you have a lovely afternoon, and thanks for joining me. Bye for now.